lot of times you don't see a jump between 4 and 5 like you should. The reason why is they become what's called a prime breeder.
Most of these are going to be loaded questions because there's so much that goes into it that people don't understand.
Just to give you a quick rundown on genetics. The good Lord puts whatever's in that deer as a fawn what he can be.
Yeah.
Number one, they need food for antlers. That's why brassicas are important, because if you got the best buffet in town, then you're going to have deer coming there.
So when it comes to whitetails, what are kind of the basic nutrients, deer need to maximize antler growth during different stages of the year? And you don't have to get in the weeds on it, just kind of in general.
It is a very integral and primary thing that we do, that I do on all properties, regardless of where we're at, is honing that property in on food. Because if you got the best buffet in town, then you're going to have deer coming there. And it just depends on what you're thinking about. Number one, they need food for antlers, antler development. And when is that? That is during the spring, that is during the summer. So they need food during that time, actually more than ever, if they're going to be all that they can be. Just to give you a quick rundown on genetics. All right, the good Lord puts whatever's in that deer as a fawn what he can be. All right, does that make sense? So say his max rack is 170 inches. Okay, well, you can't go over that. Now, you can read some of the products and things, we can add to genetics. Well, that's bullcrap. That's just not happening, all right? So whatever's in him, there is a potential there. However, throughout his entire year, his entire life, he's got to get adequate protein, adequate fat, adequate nutrients in order to reach that potential. Does that make sense? So that's why the food is important, especially during the spring and summer. And I will even say, because you guys go up into more the north, into the Midwest where you get a lot of cold temperatures, late fall is also important, or late winter is also important, as those bucks are coming out of rut and trying to build back their bodies. Let's just look at say a 4 or 5 year old deer for an example. So that buck comes out of the fall into the winter. He's been rutting hard, and his body is, a lot of times they're skin and bones during that point. They have no fat. They don't even look like the same deer body-wise. So before they can start putting surplus nutrition to their antlers, they have to build their bodies back first. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it's an idea of maintenance. So they're just gouging, they're eating as much stuff as they can, and they're going to eat whatever, regardless if it's high protein or not. They're just going to eat whatever. So the best food that you can give them during that time, and it's
corn pile.
What's that? A corn
pile.
Well, corn helps. The thing is, and here's a great disclaimer about corn. Folks think corn really fattens deer up. Well, have you ever looked at an analysis on a corn bag? It's not a lot of fat in corn. It's really not. Now, it helps, and they eat it. I always said corn's like candy. They want to go after the candy, and they're going to eat it. A deer actually can starve to death on corn during that particular time, during that function. So, because just the fat content is not there. However, there's a lot of plants. That's why brassicas are important. There's a lot of sugar. There's a lot of fat in those brassicas, those bulbs. Especially in the Northeast, in Kentucky, we have a lot of acres in radishes and things of that nature, just to give them the fat to get them back. But what I'm just trying to say is you need some food to get their bodies back. So as quick as they can get their bodies back and get healthy again, then you have what's called surplus nutrition, and then the more of that nutrition can go to their antlers. I've seen it so many different times when a buck reaches, say, 4.5. Typically at 4.5, this is an average. In Texas, probably 5 or 6. They become what's called a prime breeder. They're doing a lot of breeding. They're doing more chasing. They're doing more fighting. And a lot of times you don't see a jump between 4 and 5 like you should. The reason why is they hit it so hard, they never rebuild their bodies. So there was no surplus nutrition to go to the antlers. Does that make sense? So So, and I've seen it time and time again. On our property in Mississippi that I just left from, I have a bunch of 5-year-olds that really didn't make that big of a jump from 4 to 5. And that's the reason. Because, and we're giving them an awful lot of food, but still, they're running, they're chasing, they're trying to breed. And some of them did better than others, but I've seen it time and time again where that happened. Let me give you this story here. We had this one giant buck. At 4.5, he become very identifiable. He was probably 180 inches as a 4-year-old. Had a lot of points going everywhere. We called him Swiss Army knife because he just had stuff going everywhere. It looked like he opened the Swiss Army knife up, which is rare for Mississippi because we don't see that kind of thing. So I'm like, look, guys, we got to give him another year. I know he's a giant, biggest deer any of y'all ever shot, but we've got to give him another year. And so we give him another year, and then the next year, I thought somebody had killed him somewhere because he turned into just a clean 10-pointer. Now, he was a big 10-pointer, but he was a clean 10-pointer. And I'm a camera nut, you know, so I do all of my deer data, all of my deer censusing with cameras, so I just litter a property. So, and then I got to looking at him. He had some kind of split in his ear or, you know, had some kind of identifying feature. I'm like, that's Swiss Army. So I'm like, hold off, don't shoot him. You know, which was hard because now he's like a 175-inch 10-pointer, which is a giant, you know. I'm like, hold off. This deer could be something special. If we can, let's hold off. And I'm so glad we did because the next year we killed him, he was 197 inches. But the reason why is he become a prime breeder. He was running and chasing like he's never done before. He didn't adequately build his body back. So he didn't make a jump from 4 to 5, but from 5 to 6, I mean, you're 22 inches or better, you know, maybe 30 inches. I don't know exactly what the tape was. So anyway, I'm saying an awful lot because when you say that, it's such a loaded question on food. When do they need it? When do they don't need it? So I'll just stop right there for the next question, and we'll move from there.
Yeah, I mean, I figured as much. Most of these are going to be loaded questions because there's so much that goes into it that people
Right.
don't understand. It's just this 30,000-foot view they get, and they see people on YouTube or on Outdoor Channel
Right.
killing big bucks in a green food plot
Yeah.
in November, and they're like, I got to have a food plot.
Right.
Well, I mean, most of the big deer I killed, that big one behind me, I killed him in the timber.
Right.
I didn't need a food plot to kill that deer.
Sure.
Now, it helps with his nutrition, maybe. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the thing is, in the big deer that I killed in Natchez just this past week, I tried to hunt him in food plots, and this gets into a whole nother topic. And actually, Mississippi State has done some really cool research on food plot stuff. They've tagged deer with GPS, and you know they're tracking deer, and they actually have got it down, at least in the South, because what applies in the South don't necessarily apply in the North. But it was really some really cool research where when do they use those food plots? What size food plots do they use during the daylight more than others? How close are they bedding to these food plots? All of this kind of stuff. So, and I've kind of known this anyway, so I tried to hunt him because we've had pictures mostly at night. And it's hard to get pictures on a food plot when you're hunting big food plots because they could come in so many different places. And never did see him. There was 2 different food plots, actually 3. There was one food plot that was about 3 acres that kind of run north and south. There was a smaller food plot of about 1.5 acres that was basically right on top. And then there was a giant food plot about 1/4 mile away to the other side, back to the east, that's about 8 acres. Well, they're going to go to those food plots at some point in time, mostly at night. So the way I ended up killing him, there was right in the middle of the thicket, there was this huge lane, basically where they thin pines, they leave a lane in the middle of it, and you could see 200 yards, and that's where we got, and that's where we ended up killing him, right there in the middle of it all. Now, he was using the food plots, but we killed him in the woods. So a lot of times, especially in the South, you may not kill him in green, but you'll kill them close to it because guess what? That's where the does are going to go. And they will a lot of times, what I've learned in the South, and probably so in the North, what they'll do, they'll just get right on the edges a couple hundred yards away. Say, so you got a west wind. Well, they just get on the east side, 200 yards off that food plot, walk that edge. They can check that whole entire food plot for any doe that's in heat, you know. And the same thing, if any does are walking through there, they can pick up on their trail or whatever and get on it. So I've seen that happen so many times, and that's essentially how we killed that particular buck. But the food plots are essential on keeping the deer there. That's probably so there's two major things that food plot does. All right, number one, it gives nutrition, and I'm nutrition first. I don't care if I ever kill him, no problem. I don't care if we ever kill him in the food plot. I need to supply the nutrition because they need that. All right? So that's number one. Number two is I want to attract them and keep them on your property. Or I want to pull them off other people's property. So it's the attraction force. It's the suction force. I don't know about you guys, but in the South, we have all these catfish houses. All right? You have these catfish buffets, and they call it seafood, but it's completely different. The southern seafood.
Graham knows.
If you,
I'm an Alabama boy, Mark.
there you go. You know what I'm talking about. So, and most of the time they're open on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and some of them are open on Sunday. Some of them aren't even open on Sundays. And I'm thinking, man, how do you make a living just on 3 days running a restaurant? Well, you go get in line, but you better get there early because it's amazing. People come from everywhere. It's like a tourist attraction. People will come from counties around coming to those things. So you need to go because this is the perfect analogy. So if you get good food plots that are highly diverse with all kinds of different things that those animals like, because it's sometimes they want to hit clover. It's sometimes they're going to hit the oats. It's sometimes they're going to hit the peas. Sometimes they're going to hit the brassicas. They usually never hit them all at one time. They just hit them at different times. So you want to have a very highly diverse food plot, obviously for nutrition, but also for attraction. Now, you may never kill a giant in it, but he's going to come to it. All the does are going to be coming to it. And it's amazing the better food plots you have and the more that you plant. So you may never see that deer early season, but come rut or even come post-rut, because there's no food anywhere else, if you have a season to hunt post-rut, that's the place to go because bucks will show up that you've never seen before.
Ain't looking